Welcome to the Large and Unnecessary First Player Token podcast, episode 17. I've willed it and it's happened. We're here finally. It's been quite a big week actually.
Big week.
Yep, we put the podcast is finally up on Podnose. Thought I'd mention that at the top of the show. Might as well get a wee plug in for them. Yep. And so you can go to podnose.com. We're on there, Large and Unnecessary First Player Token.
Yeah, we're part of the network there now.
Yeah, part of a family.
We're part of a family now.
I hope they treat us well.
Aye, a family that we begged to be in.
Yeah. We applied. We basically sent them an email saying, "Can we be part of your family?
Can we please be part of your family?"
It's a twisted family situation, really.
And then George at Podnose, isn't it? He made us go off and make a new logo and everything.
He did.
So we've got a new logo. And again,
we got that done pretty quickly. Actually,
yep.
I thought we were going to piss about with this for weeks, but we actually
true.
We got things sorted out.
So big thanks to Rebecca for doing that logo.
Aye. Yeah, and to George for having us and giving us bits of podcasting advice
exactly,
by email.
Generally, do better.
Yeah.
Right, well, you might notice that there's a voice missing this week because Pawel, despite the fact that he wanted an RPG episode and he wanted it to be this episode, he is not here.
This is shocking because I was, as I said just there, I was up for episode 17. Yep. I was right ready to skip through last week's episode and get onto the RPG chat.
Get straight to the RPGs, and he's not here because he can't do his job, is the problem.
No.
So what's happened is that something's gone horribly wrong at his work that he's in charge of, and he has to go and deal with it now.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
This is just the kind of human that he is. He's not interested.
If he's allowing things to go wrong at his job and then having to go back to his job to deal with things, he's not doing his job properly.
That's true, aye.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not getting paid anymore for it. So
really,
aye.
All right.
This is just his.
He just turns up,
incompetence,
and tinkers with computers.
Yep. Just get him, Pawel.
Don't mind
we'll love you, man. We'll
he's
love you.
Pawel.
Yeah. He's actually quite good at his job, just as a disclaimer. If any future employers of Pawel's are listening to this, you should probably say this. We've just made that bit up.
Because most employers, the first thing they look for is, does this person have a podcast?
Yes.
Are they involved in a podcast in any way?
And what do these filled hosts say about him?
How can I get around discrimination rules to make sure I don't hire them?
Right. Well, that was your introduction, I think.
That was an introduction, yeah.
We'll see what George thinks about that.
Yeah, I hope
give us some feedback on that introduction, George. He's
which will be the sudden removal of the large and unnecessary first player.
It was good being part of the family.
It was nice, yeah.
Thanks for having us for that short.
For that lazy Sunday.
Right, well, let's just get moving on to the actual topics at hand, because we are a gaming podcast and we're here to talk about gaming.
That's what we talk about,
yep,
primarily.
And not RPGs this week.
Yeah.
Because Pawel's not here.
Games as well.
Yeah. So let's start with some board games. We've been playing a lot of board games recently, in fact.
We have.
To the point where we've not been playing that much video games.
No,
We've not got that balance right this week.
I certainly don't have anything new to talk about.
But we'll get to that anyway. Yeah. There is something new coming up. But mainly board games we've been playing. So this might be a board game heavy slice of an episode. So first up, we played recently a game called Lords of Waterdeep, Euan.
Yep.
Which is a strange it's a strange thing because it's set in the Dungeons and Dragons universe, but it's a Euro mechanics game, which
getting us almost back to Pawel's territory, but then pulling us straight back into mine.
Exactly,
loving it,
striking that balance there. But I get the feeling it was a bit of an effort to get people that play tabletop role playing games into board gaming by giving them a game that's set in that universe.
Yeah.
So this is Lords of Waterdeep. It came out in 2012 and it was published by Wizards of the Coast, which yeah, they've got the Dungeons and Dragons license these days.
All right.
So,
Wizards of the Coast, are they?
aye, they're definitely Wizards.
Whereabouts
of
are
the
they
Coast.
based?
They're American.
All right.
I'm not entirely sure.
You just kind of assume with a name like that they're like fucking parked in some cottage down in Cornwall or something, drinking real ale and going,
going out to Stonehenge a couple of times a year, wearing a toga.
Stout yeoman of the bar.
Oh, real ale
Get
twats,
it.
that's what you're on about.
Yeah,
Real ale twats.
I always just picture real ale twats when I think of anything sort of remotely rustic.
Bearded wankers just going about criticising you for drinking piss poor lager.
The Viz really has shaped so much of my impression of the world.
It really has. Excellent toilet reading, though.
Yeah, while I rarely go into bakers these days.
Aye, well, drunken bakers. What a strip that was. Right, anyway. Back to Lords of Waterdeep.
Aye, indeed.
Now, I've had it for a few years, but just in the past few weeks I picked up the expansion for it, which is called Scoundrels of Skullport.
Oh, yeah.
Because I found Lords of Waterdeep, the base game, to be maybe a wee bit basic.
Aye, well, I mean, I've never played it with just the base game, so I couldn't...
I think because one of the things that's in the game is that there's a bit of a hidden role thing going on, because everybody gets their own... what is it they actually call them in this?
Your faction guard.
Your faction leader, basically, yeah. So you get it's a random draw. You don't know who it is that you're getting. But they were all pretty... It was pretty easy to tell in the base game what each person had, just based on the quests that they were completing.
Yeah, just going for certain types of quests.
Yep. But the expansion has added in something a bit more interesting to it. So we'll get to that, because it definitely has spiced the game up a lot, and I won't play the base game on its own.
I think in the game we played, did we not all end up with
we all ended up with
leaders
base
from
game,
the base game, and it was, I mean, like you say, there are other elements.
Yeah, because it was slightly more difficult to actually tell who had what because of certain things. But we'll get to that.
Okay.
So the base game, it's essentially, this is just a straight up worker placement game. You've got a certain number of workers. You get an extra one halfway through the game. It's victory points based, so you're basically just trying to get as much points as you can. You're doing that by completing quests, and you get points at the end of the game depending on your faction leader, like we said. Now, what you actually do is you put there are spaces on the board. The board represents the town or city of Waterdeep, whatever it's supposed to be. I don't know very much about the Dungeons. In fact, I don't know anything about the Dungeons and Dragons
universe. Must be significant in
universe.
some way.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have called it that otherwise, I don't think.
True. So you're just placing your guys down, and you get what are the different action spaces that you've got. You can pick up some cubes.
Yeah, but I mean, the more you talk about it, the more I think that you could just easily replace this with Stone Age.
Basically.
But yeah, I mean, it's things like, because essentially you're trying to complete quests,
yes,
and you need various types of skilled. I don't know how
adventurers, heroes. Yeah. So it's your
yeah.
basic classes that you get, because they've just got the fighter, the rogue, the wizard, and the cleric.
Yeah.
So your 4 basic fantasy classes, basically.
And they're just represented by different coloured cubes.
Yeah.
There's 4 different types of cubes you can get.
And that's it. And then the quests that you get will have, say, you need 4 fighters and 2 rogues and a wizard to complete this quest.
Yeah.
And that's basically it. You just need to get those things, and then do the quest. And then you get points for that. And the quests are split into different subtypes. So you've got like skullduggery quests, you've got piety quests, you've got warfare quests, you've got commerce quests. I think is it just the 4?
I think that's it.
Or is there Arcana as well?
Oh yeah, Arcana
as
well.
well.
I was after Arcana.
Yep.
Quest.
So there's 5 different types, and then so you're basically just getting some stuff together. But it's not quite as basic as that. But that is essentially what the game is. It's basically collecting some resources, which in this game are supposed to be warriors of some sort, and then spending them to complete quests.
Well, I mean, you've got other sort of spaces on the for your placing your workers.
Yeah.
I mean, you got things like, well, you can pick up money. There is a currency.
There is a currency thing in the game, yeah.
And there's things like, you can like sort of make yourself first player. As well. You can pick up. I can't remember the name of the cards now as well.
Yeah, intrigue cards.
Intrigue cards, yeah.
Yes, there's a deck of intrigue cards, and you pick those up and you can play them at certain if you use certain actions during the game. And some of those cards are actually pretty good. They're pretty powerful really things. Aye. I always make the mistake of not picking up enough of them whenever I play this game.
I didn't go for it that much myself, but then I kind of started finding use for them later in the game.
And you can do some annoying things with them to other people. You can steal resources off them, or, well, I keep saying resources, warriors, whatever, people, guys, their cubes. You can steal those off of other people. You can make them give you money. You can do annoying things called giving them mandatory quests. So some of these intrigue cards are actually quest cards that you give to somebody else, and they're just annoying because you can't complete any other quest until you complete that one. Yeah. And generally the rewards for it are shit.
It's like usually 2 victory points or something like
that. But there are obviously some more subtleties to the game. There are buildings as well that you can build, and you could buy them with your money. Really, the only other use for money is completing quests. Some quests need money in order to be completed. But you can buy these buildings, and they put extra action spaces onto the board, and they do a pretty cool thing in that if anybody uses that action space, the person that built the building also gets something out of it. Yeah. Now, in the base game, so because this is essentially all the game is, really. Mm-hmm. I think the only other action space is
unprofessional.
Sorry, that's my phone bill. How unprofessional. The only other action space is taking more quests, really, isn't it? Yeah. Now, that's really the base game, and this is why the sort of base game it didn't feel like it had that much flavour. Like, the theming wasn't really there. It was just kind of a worker placement game that was very loosely set in this Dungeons and Dragons universe.
We've got your classic character types.
Yeah,
your wood and that man, was it. Your stone man, your iron man, and your cow man.
You kept insisting on calling these guys different names during the game, I believe.
Yeah,
you were deliberately calling the wizards mages and the rogues like thieves.
I don't think. I'll be fair. Originally, I probably wasn't doing it deliberately, but once I tend to get picked up on these things, I'll stick with it.
Now, one of the cool things is that, like, where the theming really came into it for me was in the quest cards themselves, because some of these quest cards were like. Some of them were they had some pretty cool. The artwork on them's really nice.
Oh, yeah.
They've got little flavour text on them and that. But some of them were just like, if you had to go and steal something from, I don't know, a mage's tower or something like that, you needed a shitload of rogues for that quest, so it made sense that was what you needed. And that was really where the only part of where the theme was, really. Yeah. But if you add in the expansion, it becomes much more interesting. So Scoundrels of Skullport, the expansion for it, adds in 2 basic module things that you can play with one or the other or both. And what those do is they remove basic quests from the game. You just remove a random amount and some of the intrigue cards and stuff like that, and put some new ones in. And then you get some new faction leaders that you can choose from. They are randomly drawn, but they get added into the faction leader deck, basically. And one of them adds in a really cool thing called corruption. Yeah. Which was pretty interesting because it was basically like, was it 9 or 10 layers of corruption, basically? And each one had 3 tokens in it, and you always took from the lowest numbered one if you took corruption for any reason. And if you took corruption, it was generally to get something really fucking good. Something really powerful. You were really
going for it.
Oh yeah, I went mad for the corruption. I ended up winning as well, so it seemed to work out for me. So basically, if you're taking these corruption tokens, at the end of the game, you lose points for all those corruption tokens, but it also depends on how many corruption tokens were taken. That's where the layers come into it. Right. So they're layered like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or whatever. And if the number 3 was the lowest numbered one that was empty, that's how many points you would lose per token. So if you had 6 of those tokens, you lost 18 points at the end of the game. So it could have been pretty brutal. But one of the interesting things is that one of the faction leaders that comes with that module actually gains you points for corruption tokens at the end of the game. And that was where it became a bit more interesting, because even though we all had leaders from the base game, because me and Dave were both taking quite a lot of corruption during the game, it could seem like that one of us had that faction leader, so it was a lot harder to actually tell what faction leader you had, just based on these kind of things.
I think we were all going under the assumption that one of you was
I thought it was Dave, to be fair. It wasn't me, I know that, but I'd really thought Dave had it, because he went crazy for the corruption.
But I think he'd also figured out that you can remove it over the game, and you do. Aye. I generally found, I wasn't too pressed, but you never not be able to place one of your workers.
Aye.
So there'd always be like chances to pick up stuff like that. I think I got a bonus from completing one of the quests in it that let me sort of remove 2 corruption instead of 1 when I did it. So it would just like things like that. You could kind of usually just sort of take on loads of corruption and then just get rid of it basically, which he did. I think both of you kind of took like managed to clear most of it away, apart from you at the end.
I think I was pretty humped by it by the end, but I think I'd scored that many points in the numbers,
somehow,
just on the number of quests I ended up completing that I actually ended up negating it pretty much. Despite Dave's best efforts,
he really
went for me in that game. I was getting so upset. At one point I just started pointing out that people keep coming around to my house playing my games and fucking me over.
It's not, you're generally quite gracious when you lose, but or when someone else wins, basically, which is the same thing.
Oh yeah.
But I know you're seething inside. I could see it coming.
I'm a very angry man
that day.
I think I was hungover. I think that didn't help.
That's probably.
And I drank a load of coffee, so I was just basically in anger mode.
Very pointed.
Yes, aye. But one of the other modules in the game adds in some more interesting quests and stuff like that, I think, and some more interesting intrigue cards, and a couple of more interesting action spaces and stuff like that are a bit different from the basic ones. And they're really good, like to the point, like I said, I won't play the base game on its own anymore. Like you've got to play it with these expansions now to actually give it some.
Yeah, I couldn't really imagine playing it without.
Aye,
that.
I mean, because the base game is pretty simple.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not like it's a hard game to learn with the expansions, because you played it for the first time with the expansions and you had no problem with it.
Nah.
So,
I mean, the whole corruption thing seemed pretty intrinsic to the game. When we were playing it, it didn't seem like it was something that was tacked on.
It definitely does now, aye.
So, I mean...
it feels like something that if you didn't play with it now, it would feel a bit weird.
Yeah.
Like you'd lost a limb. Really lost a limb, Euan.
Just lost a limb.
Yeah. To corruption.
Any particular one?
I think my left arm would probably be the one
that's generally the one that corruption takes.
Aye. That's where the corruption starts. Yeah. But, Lords of Waterdeep was a pretty decent game, aye. I'm glad I've got the expansion for it. I think if I had to rate it, I would rate it much lower on its own, but with the expansion, definitely higher.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed that. I mean, obviously, it had hit the Eurogames sweet spot for me.
Yeah,
but it did, like you say, it felt really thematically strong because I think the quests kind of
do make the theme. Yeah, definitely make the theme. Because without that, there isn't the theme's just tacked on.
You've got your nice artwork, and there's also the whole thing with like you've got your wee tavern board, so you've got all your minions on there, I guess. They are resources. Yeah. It kind of gives it this feeling that you're building up your wee band, sending them off to do their missions and things like that. So
it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
If I was to rate this game, I would give it... what would I give it? Probably 21 lost corruption points.
Did you?
Aye.
All of them?
Aye. I think that was what I got.
You'd take the hit?
I'd take the hit for that game, aye. What about yourself?
I would definitely give it like 5 orange guys.
They're fighters, Euan.
All right, wooden. They're wood, yeah.
Wooden square fightermen.
Wooden
fightermen.
Wooden fighters. I would give it 5 wooden fighters, 2 stone mages. No, 2 stone rogues.
Roguemen.
1 sheep mage. And a cow.
And a pear
cow
tree.
Priest in a pear tree.
Yeah, right.
Cow priest in a pear tree.
That's... You've probably hit the most obscure rating so far. That's I can't think of one that's been weirder than that.
Well, I kept it as specific to the game as possible.
You did. It also told us nothing.
That's fine.
But neither did mine, so actually that's fair enough. Mine was more at the point, though.
I generally...
You've just wasted my time.
I generally take it that the words we've said preceding those words it conveyed enough about our feelings of the game.
Right.
Than any number could say.
And I think that's the point in our arbitrary rating system, is that it's completely pointless.
We just like saying things.
It's like a sound of our own voices. It's really quiet here today. Like, Pawel's just like, he's left a gaping hole here.
There's a vacuum.
Generally, he's shouting stuff in the background.
There's a vacuum because Pawel's breathing in.
Right. Well, let's move on. Another board game, you. All right. Let's talk about another board game.
Yes, another one.
We're going to talk about Splendor.
Splendor. This
Yes.
is one that you don't own personally, which was a real surprise.
I think this is only the second time we've talked about a board game that I don't own.
Really?
I think so.
What was the other one?
The first one was...
You got research up for that?
No, the Games Workshop, Warhammer 40,000.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever it was, that big epic
That
space
didn't
battle
fare
one.
favourably in my remembrances of it.
I don't think either of us rated that game that highly. I mean, it wasn't a bad game. It just wasn't. It was a slog. It was too much of a slog for what it was.
It felt, slog was the word.
Right, so Splendor. I'll just give you the basics on this, and then I'll let you talk about it. Euan,
yeah.
Right. So this is Splendor, published in 2014 by designed by Mark Andre and published by Space Cowboys. Yeah, Space Cowboys and Asmodee, yeah, sorry. Mm-hmm. So there you go.
Well, yeah, it's a game themed around, I guess, sort of exploration and excavation of old... A bit like, I guess,
I think
like
it's
Thebes.
excavation.
The kind of you're
digging for
I don't know
jewels.
if you're specifically Tomb Raiders, but you're going for jewels and things.
Let's just say that the theme of this game is not really there.
Well, yeah, this is what I'm saying. It's so abstract.
It's completely irrelevant.
That I was struggling to really kind of remember that aspect. I was like, okay, well, you got the gems, and you can see there's like the archaeologist guy on one of it. So yeah, there's it's the theme is irrelevant really to the game.
It's a classic Euro thing where the theme is irrelevant.
Sometimes you think if they just had a game that was that, just the colour matching colours and numbers, would you play it?
I mean, this is the thing. If it was just an abstract game, which had no theme in, I would not play it. Like, I at least like to see a loose theme, even if I could recognise that as a loose theme. It's still something that draws you to the game, really.
Yeah.
So
something like Time Stories is quite clever, where the inner sort of working of the game is so.
But I think that's a design
so simple
thing.
that it just allows that. I mean, that's the kind of thing. It'd be interesting to see somebody do just like a purely abstracted set of rules, or something like a game like that, where they could try and do something interesting with it. I don't know if there's something that fits the bill.
Okay, but I won't be me.
Okay.
I'll tell you that.
Right.
I'll tell you that for free.
Well, a challenge for listeners to suggest anything that there might be a game like that out already. I don't know. But we were talking about Splendor.
We're not experts.
What?
We're not experts.
We're not experts. No, we're talking about Splendor though.
Well, we're trying to.
Right.
Well, you went off.
Okay.
I don't know where you went.
Yeah, sorry. So we had this. It's basically like Dave described it quite well as an engine building game and a kind of.
It is.
Yeah. Essentially, you've got different rows of cards and a set of coins. That was distracted by chocolate. A set of these sort of lovely, very almost like poker
heavy
chip
poker
things,
chips,
very heavy poker chips with different types of jewels depicted on them. So there's 5 types of jewels.
Yep.
And there's another set of gold, but we'll explain that because I myself didn't even quite exactly work out how that worked. I never used it. But essentially, you're trying to collect enough resources to buy the cards, and which then allow you to spend more resources because the cards usually will have a gem on them.
Yeah.
Which adds to your total when you're buying other cards. So there's a cost on the card, usually depicting one of the types of gems or one or two of them. On
sometimes
the cheaper
3,
ones.
Sometimes 4.
Yeah, it sort of builds up as it goes. So you've got sort of
there's 3 layers, 3 tiers,
layers, yeah. And you're essentially trying to buy the next level up because they start having points on the cards. So you're trying to get these points. It's like I think it's first to 15, 16.
16, I think it was.
Yeah. And so you're trying to get the points on the higher cards. So to get those, you need to kind of get some of the lower ones and build that up so that you can afford them. So it's quite, you're sort of basically building up through. I went for a lot of the lower cards as we went, and I found that was quite a sort of worked out as a tactic. Because I was basically just you get to the point you're getting free cards every round because essentially you play in there's two actions you can take, basically. You just go around, you take your action quickly, either pick up one of your poker chips, sort of, or no, it's either two of
one
of
colour.
type, or three of different types.
Yes.
One of type.
One of type, three.
Three of one of type.
C.
Actually, I've lost it. Yeah, so...
You're doing well, keep going.
Right, yeah, no, I'm explaining this. I hate explaining these games, by the way. This is something I should probably get off my chest.
You should really work on if you're going to be doing
in the middle of the podcast. Is that it's one thing that really freaks me out doing it. Just trying to get it all clear in my head exactly how it works, because it's fine when it's laid out in front of you.
Yeah,
but explaining it to someone hourly, not orally,
not all.
Yeah,
orally.
It can be difficult.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's...
Man, Pawel really keeps us on track, by the way.
He really does. He keeps us on our toes. I feel a lot less sharp.
I think the thing is that I feel like I have to keep things moving before Pawel starts shouting about anything. So I think it's more of his presence that keeps us moving. Rather than
you know something's going to happen, so you have to be prepared for it.
God, I miss that man.
He's still derailing this episode.
Yeah. Right, so back to Splendor. Let's get through this.
Right.
Orally.
So, yeah, it's not even a particularly long game. So yeah, you get your various gems, and so the cards that you've already bought that have gems on them add to your total. The ones you've picked up that are sort of in your hand, as it were, there's a maximum you can have.
There's not a limit, no. But
there's only certain numbers of them in the game.
But you spend those when you use them,
Yeah.
whereas your cards just stay there and you've always got them.
Yeah. But you can... I think Dave described going round on several rounds and just picking up the gems in every round until there were nothing left
I
for
think,
other players to take.
Well, I mean, we've got to take Dave's word on this.
Aye.
I've not got the rule book in front of me. He's the only one that had read the rules, and he says that there was nothing to stop you from just basically picking all the gems up.
Fair enough.
All the time.
It
and
could
stopping
be
other
like
people.
just one of these hardcore tactics.
It feels like
for this
that's
game.
against the spirit of the game, though.
Possibly.
In fact, just against the spirit of gaming in general. It's the sort of manoeuvre that a complete dickhead would pull.
You're calling David a dickhead?
No, I'm not still angry about Lords of Waterdeep.
I see,
all
right.
It's fine.
I see where this is coming from.
I see
what's going on here.
In fact, I should probably apologise to Dave. I did swear at him quite a lot during that
Did
gaming
you?
session.
You did actually, yeah. I was just sitting there, oblivious, just trying...
Sorry, Dave. But anyway, let's carry on.
Yeah. Well, essentially, you've got, as you're building up these, there is a top row above these three rows of cards where you've got various monarchs depicted. I think you draw them randomly because there's different ones you can have. Because we had definitely it was Henry VIII.
Henry VIII was there. I don't know why.
I don't know who else that was meant to be. And you basically impress them by getting various sets of jewels.
And they
so
go, "Ooh, nice jewels!
Look at the jewels." That's a Henry VIII there.
It's well known that's what Henry VIII sounded like.
Yeah, and he was always going on
jewels.
about jewels. He would have people bring him jewels.
Yep.
Specifically, so he could sit and go, "Oh, look at the jewels!"
Lying on a couch, just "Oh, look at those."
Yeah. He didn't even like doing that. He knew it annoyed people.
It was a kind of Tourette's, I think he had.
Yeah. We cannot review this game.
We're not, man. Just keep going.
Okay.
Just keep going.
So anyway, you've got you're trying to get these sets of gems.
I quite enjoy this style of reviewing.
This is ridiculous. I don't think we've ever done one like this before.
We probably have.
So yeah, well, basically you're trying to impress these monarchs with your sets of gems. So, like for example, they might have one of them might be looking for a set of 3 blues, a set of 3 whites, and a set of 3 browns. I don't know what gem is brown, but one of them was brown in this game. And yeah, so I won the game by getting those
quite
together pretty early.
Yeah.
Because most of them were looking for 3 sets of 3. One of them was looking for a set of 4.
The monarchs are looking for quite a lot of stuff, basically.
Yeah.
But they are worth a lot of points. So I think you ended up just all of a sudden realising that there was 2 monarchs out of the 4 that you could just take.
Well, yeah, I was
there
quite close to getting, and I could pick up. And the thing was, it wasn't dependent on you getting the higher value cards, you
Yeah.
could just, as long as you had the gems on them from even the lower value ones, you could just go for them basically, which I did.
Yep.
Snapped up the points and won.
And well done.
Yeah, I feel
Well done.
Felt good about it.
Yeah.
My first victory of that day.
Jewelman.
Jewelman.
That's
I was doing some really. I thought it was a good game. I really.
Actually, I mean, for such a
enjoyed
basic game, it was, which is just, it is really just a basic engine building
Yeah.
game.
Very abstracted.
It was still pretty good.
Yeah.
I quite enjoyed playing it. It was quite a good little sort of filler game. It took, how long did it take? Half an hour?
Oh.
40 minutes at the most for us to play through that, including learning it. So it really was not long.
No, it's. Yeah, and it's just well designed, kind of just.
Yeah.
It works
Refined
well,
and, just elegant, I think is the word. It's a very elegant
game.
But yeah, I enjoyed it.
A splendorous game.
Oh, for fuck.
I'm trying to bring this one back, you know?
You're trying. And,
Aye.
I mean, I'm not having it.
Right, fine.
I preferred it when we were just talking nonsense, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that's maybe the point of that game, is that it allows room for tangents.
It does. Yeah. You don't really have to. You don't have to think that hard. It helps. If you plan ahead in this game, you're going to get far.
Yeah.
If you just like me, just grab whatever you can take,
You're
then
just going for anything.
grabbing
that
wildly. I was
fun.
again. I was just so full of coffee. It was just like,
And you were reeling from your.
yeah. I was
well,
still
your
sky high
shock
from
win of-
shocking win of Lords of Waterdeep. But yeah, that's Splendor. Then I think that's pretty much summed up
I think
Splendor there
that's.
for us.
Yeah. Probably took us a lot longer than it needed to, really.
A little longer than it took for us to play it.
Yeah. This was going to be a short episode.
Right, what are you rating it?
Probably a 5 brown jewels out of 9.
That's a pretty middling rating.
Yeah, I think it's just a serviceable, good game.
I mean, I feel like you enjoy that a lot more than that, but I don't know.
I could knock it up to
Maybe.
6 brown jewels, but I just don't know if I could afford it.
Alright.
And Henry VIII is sitting there snapping them up. He's sending everyone out for these brown jewels. He's, oh, lovely brown jewels.
Oh. Right, well, yeah. I mean, I suppose I would actually probably go along with you on that rating, but I mean, I thought that you liked it more than I did, so I'm quite surprised by that. But
No, it's, as I said before, the ratings mean nothing.
yeah, it's true. The ratings do mean nothing. Alright.
But
it's a decent game.
I still can't get that extra gem off of Henry VIII.
Nah,
So
he's not.
Yeah.
He's lodged that.
He's
lodged that somewhere.
Yep. The ratings mean nothing, but the consequences of the ratings are very real.
They're very real and very terrifying. Right, so let's move on. So we've played another game which is a bit heavier, more serious.
Slightly weightier. I wouldn't say massively so.
So serious, Euan.
It's not that serious.
It's
really.
extremely.
I would. Didn't really
Serious.
feel like anybody in this game was taking themselves seriously.
Nah. But that is it's a definitely a heavier game, right? So this is At the Gates of Loyang,
Yeah.
or as Euan calls it, At the Gates of some Chinese city.
I couldn't remember the name.
Yeah.
I weren't being racist or nothing.
Right, so this is one of Uwe Rosenberg's games,
Yes.
who is quite famous for Agricola. Now, it's part of the same of what they call the Harvest Trilogy, or the Harvest Trilogy, which includes, obviously, At the Gates of Loyang, Agricola, and Le Havre.
Yeah.
Now, Le Havre, one of my favourite one out of the three of them is Le Havre. Yeah. Now, At the Gates of Loyang is the one that gets overlooked quite a lot. Now, because Le Havre's quite a popular one,
Yeah.
Agricola's quite a popular one. Agricola, since people claim, has been replaced by Caverna, which is what they call Agricola 2.0. Designed by the same guy, obviously. Now, he basically refined Agricola and released Caverna.
Yeah, he's
But
added the...
I own them both, and I have to say, I still think Agricola's a better game. But
Agricola's a classic, really.
it is a classic, and I think it's mainly to do with the cards and stuff that are in Agricola. I quite like the fact that there's massive decks of cards in Agricola, and you get random ones at the start of the game.
Yeah, it's always a different
always
game.
different.
It's one that I generally toil with,
Yeah, I don't pretend to be good at Agricola.
but I do enjoy playing it.
I do like the idea of it. But
Yeah.
anyway, we're here to talk about At the Gates of Liang. We'll leave the Agricola review for another
Well, I
time.
mean, I can see why out of the three it's probably slightly... Because, like I say, it's a lightweight, just in terms of the physical game itself. You know, it's mostly cards. You've got a little sort of score...
Yeah.
T thing.
I'd say, yeah, and in terms of the actual bits that are in the box,
yeah,
it's much lighter than Agricola or Le Havre.
I don't know, maybe some people get a bit snobby about that.
Get a bit if it's not full of stuff, I'm not playing it.
They want a game that weighs over a certain amount of kilograms.
That's it.
And I don't... We could sit here and weigh all your games.
The thing is, there's someone in the back of my mind that's saying that I've probably based a purchase on that.
I've
probably stood with 2 games in my hand and went, this one's heavier, I'll buy that.
Oh, definitely.
More bits than this.
You pick up some box. The larger the box and the lighter it is as well, the less you're inclined to go for it.
I think I've also put a game back based entirely on the shape of the box.
Really?
Well, you know these game boxes, they're all pretty standard sizes these days.
Yeah.
Right? They're all standard shapes and sizes sort of thing. When you get one which is a bit not that shape... you get a bit put off by
shop
it.
Comparing it to other games.
You just
there's something off about
I
this.
can't fit that in the shelf, but I can fit that one, so I'll buy that one.
Fair enough. I mean, they spend a lot of time on a shelf.
It's
These
true.
are things you've got to be.
The vast majority of their life is
about.
spent sitting doing nothing.
Yeah,
that's slightly depressing, but
you can't play them all the time.
I really want to. If anybody wants to pay me to play board games, please
constantly. Do. And not sleep or anything like that.
No, I'm having sleep.
Right.
Oh God, I can't function without sleep. Right, anyway, so back to At the Gates of Liang. So this is, if you've played any Uwe Rosenberg's other games, you will be very kind of familiar with what goes on in these kind of games. Now, basically, At the Gates of Liang, you're a Chinese farmer, which I don't know if there's any other games that are themed like that, but interesting.
Probably something.
There's probably something,
That's a good theme.
But anyway, you're a Chinese farmer, but you're growing different types of crops in this game. Now, it's kind of strange the way that this game's put together. So at the start of the game, you've got a home field, which has got 9 spaces in it, and you can plant 1 of 3 different types of crop, which are the cheapest crops in the game, but you get to choose which one you want to plant. So you've got grain, you've got
your wheat,
pumpkins
and radish.
Turnips. They look like radishes.
Yeah.
The pieces in this game are quite nice. They're actually shaped
nice
like the little vegetables.
Nice little vegetable shaped things.
What else have we got? We've got beans, and you've got, is it celery or leeks? It's leeks.
Leeks, I think. Yeah.
And there's something else that I think I'm missing.
I think the radishes there's a white one that looks weird.
Oh yeah, cabbages. I think.
Oh, is that maybe a cabbage?
I think there's cabbages.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you've got 6 different types of vegetable anyway, and some of them are worth more. They've got a higher value during the game. Now, what you're doing is you're planting these things. Every turn you get a new field automatically, so you can plant things. You can only plant certain things in certain fields. Generally, the smaller fields you can only put them. The smaller fields are the only ones that you can put the most expensive, or the ones that are worth more vegetables in. And as the game goes on, you're going to be getting customers coming to you. Some of them are regular customers, some of them are one-off customers, and they'll be wanting specific things. Now, your regular customers want the same 2 vegetables every turn. If they want some of the more expensive ones, they'll give you more money. If they want some of the cheaper ones, if they're just wanting 2 wheat, for example, every turn, you're going to get much less money for that. But keeping those customers happy is all good part of the game sort of thing, because the more that you give them, the more money you get back from them. You've got casual customers, they just want is it 3 things?
Usually 3 things,
and they give you a one-off payment and they're gone. You get other cards in this game. You get marketplaces, so marketplaces that are only for you to use. So you can trade one type of vegetable for another depending on the card. They've generally got 3 vegetables on them, and they want generally 1 or 2 vegetables in exchange for one of these vegetables that they've got. And you get helpers, which are all different things. You can think of them like sort of action or event cards in other games that give you some sort of one-off bonus which is just written on the card. And some of them are quite useful. Some of them let you sell to other people's customers and that kind of thing. They're pretty good, some of these cards. But that's like the 4 different sort of basic cards that you get. But how you get these cards is quite interesting. So it's like a card drafting thing that's a slight difference. So at the start of every round, everybody gets dealt 4 cards.
4, yeah.
Now, what you have to do with these cards, whoever goes first has to put 1 down in the middle. Now, the person that goes next can take that card and 1 from their hand.
Yeah.
And that's the 2 cards they get that round. Okay? And then the rest of their cards they have to put in the middle. And then the next person can either take 1 of those cards and 1 from their hand. And those are the 2 cards that they get. Or they can put a card down in the middle again. And you basically keep going around the table until everybody has picked up 1 card from the table and 1 card from their hand. And that's the 2 cards they get. So it's kind of strange. So you can do some like weird things in it. So like you can put a card down in the middle. If you've got 2 cards in your hand that you really want, you can put 1 of those cards down in the middle and then hope that nobody else takes it. So when it comes back round to you, you can take that card and 1 from your hand and put it down.
Yeah.
And it does bring up some sort of weird, nice wee... I quite like that card drafting thing, actually. I thought it was like a really interesting wee mechanic for this game.
It's interesting, like I find all these about these Harvest trilogy, like Uwe Rosenberg, he's got a strange mind.
Yes.
The way his games work are always just different to what you'd expect, how you'd expect things to go, or just how other things. There's a lot of awkward little mechanics in that are strange at first, but work really well once you get into them. But yeah, that one. I mean, I was kind of doing things that at first I thought there was a competitive element to that, and I suppose there is to some extent. But you kind of more find yourself just going, right, well, what can I do? And just makes you sort of make plans on the fly for like what you're going to do on that turn, and it is very much like. It's not one where you build up over time. You do find yourself pretty much playing from one turn to the other. Yeah. With very little kind of like, I'm going to plan for this in so many turns.
Aye, I mean, the things that you can plan for is that you can get your fields planted, and you can get your vegetables growing. Aye. And you can get your regular customers sorted out, but you do have to just kind of on the fly just go, right, well, I've got this regular customer in my hand. I could keep this regular customer, and they're wanting stuff that I'm not growing yet, but then I can maybe trade some of these things with my marketplace and all this kind of thing, and I put all these things. And it does make you, for one turn to another, think about how do I make the most money this turn and future turns.
Right wheeler dealer, you know.
It does.
You got to be a bit canny.
And I quite like that about this game. You can't really plan too far ahead. You can get wheels in motion that will cover what you're doing at the moment, but you can't really plan too much into the future.
Well, like getting your fields down for your... I mean, you kind of want certain harvests coming in for your regular customers. Yeah. That's something you're really not going to be able to set up in the first turn, and unlikely in the second turn really have it going. So you're having to try and just scrape through.
Yeah. Because one of the things with regular customers is that if you don't give them what they want every turn, the first time you don't do it, they become unhappy. You've got a little token to mark if they're happy or unhappy. And the second time you don't do it, you have to pay them. Yeah. And you don't want to do that in this game, because you really want to be making as much money as possible, and there's a reason for that, which is that the points in this game, you have to buy them with your money. Yeah. Now, I think this is one of the things that kind of puts people off this game, alright? Because it is a weird system.
It is.
And that you have a little, what they call the prosperity track on your personal board with your little marker on it, and it goes from 1 to 20. Now, you start on 1 at the start of the game. Now, every round, at the end of every round, you can spend 1 coin to move up 1 space in the prosperity track. If you want to move up to the next space at that time, you have to pay what's written on the space. And it's just like I say, it's numbered 1 to 20. So in your first turn, if you want to move up to the number 3 to space 3, you pay 1 coin to move on to 2, then 3 coins to move on to 3. So that's going to cost you 4. If you wanted to move on to 4, you would have to pay another 4 coins. So that would cost you 8 coins altogether. Yeah. Just to move up those spaces. The chances of you having that much money at the end of that first round are pretty slim. Yeah. However, it can cause a bit of an issue with this game, because you tend to find that you don't have too many turns where you make shitloads of money in one go. It tends to be a steady, slightly increasing rate of income that you get. And it does mean that if somebody is managing to get their really good regular customers served, or serving some good casual customers, and they've got just enough to get themselves a wee inch ahead, a wee space ahead, like early on in the game, you tend to find that they'll stay ahead. Because I've played this game 4 or 5 times now, and that tends to be the case.
Well, I ended up winning this one, and you were saying it quite early on. It's like, he's ahead.
You're ahead.
You've got it. And
you'd gone about 2 spaces ahead of me, and I was just like, I'm already out of the running here.
Right.
But I mean, I enjoy the game because I enjoy these sort of like getting your engine up and running, serving your customers. There's something quite satisfying. That's why I play these games, in fact.
It's why it's a weird game. I mean, the way it almost feels like you're sort of playing outside the bounds of what you're supposed to be doing in the game in the first couple of turns, because you're just like, what? I can't get anything going. I can't do this. And yet, I was getting ahead because I was basically, I've got some money. I'm just going to spend it, and I was getting the money from daft stuff like just cards that would get you certain things, or like selling vegetables at crap prices and stuff like that. Just like anything to get me a bit of money and just put myself one space ahead.
Yep.
So, and didn't really have any farming going at all at that point.
That is another thing about this game. It's like selling your vegetables does not get you very much money at all. It's like 1 coin per vegetable, and it costs much more to buy them, which is like, was it 3 for the wheat, and it goes up to something like
one. It goes up
7
1 for each one. It goes.
It's like it gets so much more expensive.
It's ridiculous.
So selling your vegetables is not a profitable thing in this game. You really just want to, not selling them to the market.
One of those things where just like, I don't have a choice here. I think it was kind of just, if I can get that 1 goal to do this thing, then I might be set up for the next turn, but I've no idea,
But it's an interesting one, and I can understand why it divides people, why it's not as popular as Agricola or Le Havre, but I quite enjoy it. I mean, I think it's a
good game, and it doesn't take, it's probably not as, it probably doesn't take quite as long to play as the other 2.
Oh no, it definitely doesn't. It's definitely the quickest of the 3 of them. I mean, obviously that depends on who you're playing it with, but but we played a 3-player game. It only goes up to 4. The rules change slightly. Like for 2, 3, and 4 players, the rules are different for all 3, but only slight differences. I think the 2-player game's really strange. Yeah. There is also a solo version, which tends to happen in Uwe Rosenberg games. There tends to be solo rules. You play it 1 player.
It's worked out somewhere doing it.
Yeah, try and get a high score, see if you can beat it next time you play, that kind of thing. He tends to do these kind of things with these games, and fair enough.
You get a bit of practice in, I suppose.
That's it.
That's what he wants you to do. He wants you to become a ace board gamer.
Master Rosenberg.
Master of the Rosenberg trilogy.
No, that should be a title.
That is, I think,
Master of the Rosenberg trilogy.
I think that's the episode title, isn't it?
That might have to be. Yeah, we've started doing episode titles now.
Yeah. It was something suggested for Podnose. And,
Thanks, George.
Let's just call him the commish from now on.
Commissioner George.
The commissioner. But I thought it was a good idea. We implemented it.
It is a good idea, and we did implement it without a fuss. So.
I hope people enjoy those. You can browse through all the ones that I've spent Sunday raking through all the old episodes again, having a nostalgia trip. And 16 episodes of this is quite a lot to get through, actually.
Oh, yeah. 16 episodes of this nonsense.
I know. It's a bit of a slog.
Right, well, let's stop being self-indulgent and let's move on.
Yeah.
So, at the Gates of Loyang, I think we've pretty much covered how the game feels, and the sort of basic rules here. And I mean, I quite enjoy it. I still think, like I say, if I had to rate the trilogy, it would be Le Havre, then Agricola, and then at the Gates of Loyang. But that doesn't make it a bad game, because Le Havre and Agricola are great games.
Yeah, it's difficult to top them, really.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I mean, you were saying, because you brought this out before when we'd only had 3. Yeah. You kind of recommended it as a 3-player game.
I think as a 3-player game, it really hits a sweet spot.
What was you saying? You were telling me something odd about the 4-player game.
I think if I remember correctly, I might be wrong, but if I remember correctly, with the 4-player game, there's something weird going on where I think you can only trade with, or you can only do things like play sort of helper cards and that kind of thing, like basically interact with one specific person each turn.
Right.
I don't know if it's the person opposite you, or if it's person. I think there's tokens that can mark this and stuff. I don't know. I can't remember exactly how it works, but
because there's nothing really specific on the cards that would give any indication on that.
There are cards that you remove from the game if you're playing with 2 people, I think. But you see, it's kind of strange. But I think for a 3-player game, I think that was kind of. I get the feeling that that's the way it's supposed to be played. Like for the 3-player game, that's basically what the rules are in the rule book. So. That I get the feeling that's how it's supposed to be played, and I think there are very few games that play much better with 3 players than they do with other numbers of players, and this is one of them.
It has that advantage, that niche.
Aye,
The 3
definitely.
player.
But yeah, so that's Lords of Waterdeep. Are you wanting to rate this, Euan?
This isn't Lord. This
Isn't Lords of Waterdeep. I'm just looking at my notes. This is at the Gates of Loyang.
Oh, at least you've got notes. You should be proud. It's definitely a good, it's a solid 8 cabbages for me.
8 cabbages. That's one of the bigger fields, actually.
That's,
yeah. 8
it's
space field.
difficult to get 8 cabbages down in that game.
That is, well, very well done.
I mean,
I'll give it like 2 beans in that 3 bean field.
Oh, yeah.
I don't
So
know.
you're not prepared to make a 3 bean salad.
Nah, I'm not prepared to do that 3 bean.
You ask someone to bring another bean for you.
Nah,
So you can have a 3 bean salad.
I'm just not up for it.
Alright.
I mean, it's my excuse for not making one.
Right, okay.
If folk come round and say, "Where's my 3 bean salad?" I'm
Sorry,
like,
I've
"Oh,
not got the other bean. Sorry.
Aye.
Yeah, that's a fair excuse.
I'm just lazy. Yeah.
Yeah. But then people don't put up with that when I say I don't have tea bags.
3 tea bag salad.
Nah. 3
I'm assuming we're still talking about salads with 3 things in.
tea bag salad. Aye, well, yeah. No, just I won't make them any tea, is what I'm saying.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So where's the salad come into this?
It's just a similar situation.
Right, okay, fair enough.
In my mind.
Well, I think that quite weirdly brings the board game section to an end.
It's dead, yeah, sure. We've done well today.
I don't know who's regretting Pawel not being here more, us or the listeners.
Write in and tell us, folks. Or petition Pawel to do his own podcast.
Don't do that, man. We need it.
Yeah, actually, no, do not do that.
Right.
Chase him back into our arms.
Okay, let's have a break, Euan, alright? I think we need a break.
Okay, we need to stop for a second. I need a drink of water. I need to just, yeah.
I need to go and, I don't know, curl up on the floor for a while. But we'll come back very soon and we'll talk about some video games.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're back and it's video game chat time. I've got a cup of tea. I'm feeling a bit less, I don't know, weirded out by that board gaming section.
I don't know.
Something went wrong there, man.
Oh, I wouldn't say it went wrong. I think everything
went sideways there.
Perfectly right.
But this video game section, it's probably not going to be as long as it usually is because we've not really been playing a lot of video games. I've not had a lot of time for it recently.
Part of this is Pawel's fault, by the way.
Yeah.
I specifically didn't bother playing anything else, and I was quite happy what I was doing because I was waiting. I wanted to give a bit of breathing space for Pawel to talk about his RP because he needs it. And
he does want to get it out of his system.
He gets expansive about it.
And he's not here, Euan.
Well, we'll get over it, I think.
I don't know. I'm going to be angry for a while.
We've done this without him before.
Yeah.
Hopefully we will never have to do it without
him.
We
did it without him for about 10 episodes, and I don't know how.
Aye. I'm starting to look back on that as wasted time, really.
Practice run. Right, anyway, so I have been playing something new, but we'll get to that later because I want to talk about stuff we've already talked about. Yeah. Which, first off, I'm going to bring up The Division again.
Oh, right.
Which is now 3 weeks in a row that we've talked about The Division. 3 episodes in a row, I think. And on the last episode, I was pretty much saying that I was looking for reasons to dislike The Division.
Right.
And it still is that kind of gun nut game sort of thing, with these actual realistic guns and shit like that you can modify.
Well, it's a Tom Clancy game.
Tom Clancy's shite.
He's going to get the game, even from beyond the grave. He's going to make sure those guns are correct.
The kids of today are well trained on what gun bits go with what guns.
Yeah.
Right.
Or at least know how to name them in internet forums when they're having sort of hardman style chat.
Internet hardman.
Aye.
I do love an internet hardman, by the way.
Especially when he can name the correct gun.
Exactly, yeah. That's when you know you're up against a proper internet hardman.
This guy knows his shit. He reads Tom Clancy.
But I have to say, I think I've got past that stage. I've got past that stage of just sort of trying to dislike this game, and I think I am actually quite enjoying it now. I'm still kind of playing it a wee bit obsessively. I haven't said that I've not played it in a few days, but I've been busy.
Yeah.
but I've kind of got past that. I'm enjoying the Dark Zone a lot more. I'm finding that I'm not dying constantly anymore.
Yeah.
I think I just got unlucky the first.
You took Pawel's advice, did you?
Well, I just kept grinding away at it. But I think I just got unlucky the first sort of couple of times I went into the Dark Zone and just kept constantly getting assaulted. I think that was just unlucky because I've not had those kind of issues since then. I've been managing to get a lot more stuff extracted and stuff like that.
It's just random encounters, might be the terrain or the area that you're in.
I mean, it's the same area. That's the thing. It's just because of the random spawns, and I think the random spawns were what were pissing me off. Because
is the Dark Zone quite a large area in the game, or is it?
It's a decent sized area.
Yeah.
Aye.
So you couldn't just run across it in a couple of seconds or anything.
No. But yeah, it's just like I say, it was the random spawns, and I think they were just randomly spawning a hell of a lot. That I think it was where it was. I was getting unlucky, basically. So since then, I mean, my feelings on it are still reasonably the same. I just think I'm enjoying it a hell of a lot more.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm getting over myself, Euan.
You're not being such a snob about it.
I'm not being such a bell end about it anymore.
Well, you know, these games, these people that make the games, they don't set out to make crap. You know, they want to make something that's going to entertain you, and for at least a reasonable amount of time. Mm-hmm. So, I
think the other thing is that actually, I think today, as we're recording this, the latest sort of like downloadable content. I don't know if it's DLC. I don't know. I don't think you have to pay for it. I think it's just like they've added something into the game,
a new patch,
and there's an update for it. I think there's an extra area or an extra mission that you can do now. So I'll be interested to check that out.
Okay.
Well, I don't know what it is yet. But yeah, I just wanted to just add on to that bit of the Division. I am enjoying it a lot more, basically.
That's fair enough. You know, it seems like, and I guess the sort of multiplayer aspect of it, it's going to keep you coming back to it.
I think so. I mean, I've not really experienced too much of the multiplayer side of it.
Really?
Because, I mean, you can get together with people to do story quests and stuff like that, or you meet people in the Dark Zone all the time, and that's where the sort of the Mexican standoff can sometimes happen. But I mean, when you're running about in the actual main world of it, there's nobody else around. It's just you. Or if you've teamed up with somebody, then they'll be there as well. But so the multiplayer thing is pretty limited on it to what you can actually do when you experience different people. So when other people are around, sorry. But I think it's interesting.
Well, I'm not bothered really because I'm probably not going to end up playing it. But
I never asked you to.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. You answered the question I never asked you.
Well, that was my segue.
Right.
Into me saying that I will be playing.
What I have been playing. Sorry, I've just completely shat all over
you
that.
Did, but it's fine. There's very few segues make it intact in these episodes.
I think we should make it a personal quest to find the worst segue we possibly could.
Oh, we could do some horrendous ones.
Yeah.
Didn't I do like a really like?
You did that.
I was asked to do a contrived one.
Yeah, and you managed it on the spot, which was quite impressive.
You just link random words together. Really, it's much like we do with our ratings. We just whatever plops onto your tongue at the moment.
Well, we'll go from Tom Clancy into something that isn't an anagram of Tom Clancy, which is Factorial.
That's not an anagram of anything that I know of.
Well, there we go.
Yeah. I've just been playing it since we last gathered here.
We talked about it last episode. And I've been playing it as well.
Yeah, well, now you've had a chance to get into it, because as we all remember from last episode, Chris took his eye off the ball a bit and started buying, just going
buying games,
online shopping in the middle of the episode. So, yeah, I've just been... I mean, at that point, I think when we talked about it in the last episode, I hadn't really done that much. I'd kind of been playing through some of the tutorials in the first couple of scenarios, and it was in, I think, one of the first campaign levels. I just kind of went, right, I'm just going to start
I did the same
start
thing.
a sandbox game and just go for it, which was a good decision, I think, just to find what's in there, basically. I've got to look at like all the sort of research. At this point, I am now well into kind of most of the basic and intermediate research is done.
Yeah,
I've got a wee car going about. I've got I've been improving my weapons because I've gone for having the aliens in my in my one, which I still think, despite what you were saying about just having the time to do everything, I still think is
I'm slightly regretting.
Kind of makes the game for me.
What you're saying there, because what you're saying is that I turned on the peaceful mode, which means that the aliens won't attack you first.
Or they won't. So
they're still there.
Oh well, that's okay then.
But they won't attack you first.
That's okay then. Because I think just having them there is kind of integral to the game. Because you're essentially, what I've realised is it's not so much a survival game as a conquest game.
Yeah,
because you are just trying to build up and get out there.
I think the thing with this game was that I'm starting to learn something about myself, not just through playing this game, but just through gaming in general.
Right.
Which is that I have a tendency to turn things right up and then get bored of it very quickly.
Because you're maybe getting your
arse.
Yeah,
it's just like I want all that. Like I want, like when you play Civilization, I'm going to play it on the biggest map. I'm going to fill it with civilizations. I'm going to make the turns as long as possible. And then you get sort of like 300 turns in, you go, I'm done with this. Now, so I'm trying to force myself to push things back a bit. Now, this is why I turned on the peaceful mode, because I was just like, I would like to see how the actual factory side of this game works more than trying to survive.
That's the core of the game, really, is the production manufacturing. It's I mean, I think since it was probably not long after we recorded last that I finally got the sort of there's basically I was talking about the research packs. So you've got your sort of like little potions things, and you've got red, green, and blue ones. And I'd set up a sort of production thing for the red ones, which was kind of the first thing you need to kind of get going. And I got them going for the green ones, the next level ones up. I'm now looking at trying to get the blue ones, but this is the point now where I've got to this game where I'm actually kind of reluctant at the moment to fire it up, because I know it's going to take serious time. Yeah. Because I don't want to like leave some. Well, a lot of the time I do leave stuff half done because it doesn't really matter that much. But it's I just like I know I want to kind of get a project completed, and it's going to take a bit of investment of my time and thought.
I know exactly what you mean. I mean, coming at it from like obviously you'd already played it in the last episode, but. Since I started playing it, I totally understand what you mean now. When you first set up that first wee thing, when that switch flicks in your head, when you realise that if I just get this conveyor belt doing that, going this way, and this this robotic arm picking this up, moving that into there, and then we've got this thing going that way and that thing, and then all of a sudden you're producing things at a constant, steady rate, and there's something that just like is so satisfying once you get that moving, once you get that process going. Like it's brilliant, a brilliant feeling. Like
they've tapped into something with this game, and it's just
something that they know that nerds have, which is like if someone's working efficiently and smoothly.
Just sitting there,
and you can just sit and watch it because you knew you created this. You're like, ooh.
When I got my first kind of area set up, because I've done a lot of reconstruction. I had an area set up with sort of iron and copper mining going into the production, because they are the only base ingredients you need for the first two sets of research things. The third one you need iron and copper. You also need steel, which you need to refine from iron, but you need to put it through the smelting process again. You need batteries, you need sulfuric acid for that, and iron and copper, and you also need plastic, for which you need petrol, petroleum gas. I can't remember what else, probably coal or something like that. But it's so now I've reached the refining stage, and now you've got this whole other thing where you've gotten completely to grips with how to set up these sort of little processes with the conveyor belts and the assembly sort of areas. Now it's almost reached this, like you've plateaued, and then suddenly you've got this whole other thing in front of you with the refining chemicals and other things like robotics, setting up whole new ways of doing it. And now I'm sort of like, just my mind is blown by all the stuff that, and I haven't even got to some of it yet, and I've kind of you get ahead. Like, I researched refining or oil drilling and stuff before I actually researched how to like contain any of that stuff. So I just had pipes from like oil wells, 2 refineries and 2 chemical plants, but nothing to store anything in.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to like research fluid handling to have sort of like tanks and things you could put stuff in. So it was just, yeah. I have now researched barrels, so I can probably put this sulfuric acid I've been making into some barrels and make some batteries. And
it does become like each layer to the game becomes thicker than the layer before it, doesn't it?
It's a lot of depth to it, and I know that there's a lot more to come as well. I mean, you kind of see that there's other options there.
I haven't played it in about a week now, and I think one of the reasons for it is similar to what you were saying, was that I got to this point where thinking, well, like, the next time I fire this up, my brain is going to be fried. And the reason for that is because I started messing about with the circuitry.
Aye.
Right, and then I realised that you could set up something, and it was obviously the most basic circuit you could make, which was basically just I hooked up a smart arm to a smart chest. Right, and realised that you could make that chest, that arm, only take things out of that chest under certain circumstances. So if there was a certain amount of things in this chest of this type, then I could make that arm take something out of that chest and put it somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then when I sat there and I looked at that, when I realised you could do that, I just kind of went, that's going to have a real use in this game, and at the moment I cannot think what it is, but there's going to be something that I can use this for. And then I know the next time I fire the game up, I'm going to be sitting looking at that going, what am I going to do with this? Right, I've made this discovery, what am I going to do with it now?
What I've generally done is a lot of stuff like that where I've really, like, I noticed that they had those little logic gates and like different things like red wires and green wires and stuff like that. I've to be honest, some of that stuff I haven't even researched yet, because I was like, that's going to come later. That's what I felt like. It was like, there's going to come a point where I'm not going to try and force myself to use some of these things. Like, I remember making some of the smart arms early on in the game, and I've yet to really find a really solid use for it. I mean, there's been a couple of things where, I want to have some, there's like 2 different things on this conveyor belt, and I want to have a box coming off here just to store one of them or something like that, so you could put one of the smart arms. But like, that's the most I've bothered with it for. But I know that there'll be more complicated things I can set up as it sort of builds up. But yeah, mind-blowing game.
It is. It's mind-frying game,
yeah,
really. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Mind-blown in the sense that it's something sort of, it's not really new, but it's a completely new take on these.
Oh, absolutely,
sort of
yeah.
Definitely been spawned out of the stuff that people made using redstone stuff, things
because
in
it's
Minecraft
kind of, it's a bit
like
unwieldy in Minecraft, but you kind of find yourself going towards these sort of things like, oh, can I do this? What can I set up, and like, what mechanically can I do? And they've obviously gone, well, we could just create a world of possibilities for that.
So it's definitely been born out of that kind of thing, but it's mind frying in the way that you really do have to. The problem is that you try and think about how you're going to do it as efficiently as possible.
Yeah.
Like a good factory owner would.
Well, you don't just want everything going all over the place.
No, that's it. Which is how mine ended up at one point, and I had to just redesign the whole thing. In fact, I'm probably going to have to redesign it again, because it's everywhere.
You do find yourself doing it, and like I was saying in the previous episode, it's very easy to do, and they've made that a thing. It's like, you need to be prepared to. It's not just like you're not building up an empire sort of thing with like. Yeah. It's a constant sort of process that you're dealing with. So yeah, I would just constantly. I will keep on recommending this game to anybody I happen to bump into in the street.
Just anybody at all.
Yeah, just everybody.
You're going to be like one of those weird people that just walks up to people in the street and says something bizarre and then walks off.
Aye. Play Factorio.
Have you ever played Factorio?
Son, you ever played Factorio?
Here, mate, you got any Factorio on you?
Here, aye. I've got some Factorio around the corner. Come with me.
Right, well, that was a bit weird. So back to podcasting. Definitely enjoying Factorio.
Absolutely. Yep. I may continue to give updates on that as it.
I think
as
so.
More
I think
things, more things uncover themselves. I may need to try and play something else for a bit, though. It's kind of. Although I haven't played it that much in the last few days, I've kind of just. I don't think I played it at all in the last couple of days. Played it maybe quite a long time on Saturday, and then was like, right, I need to.
Yeah.
Just put this down.
I do feel that having breaks from this game does help.
Aye. Well, when you get to a point when you've just created, and you've kind of, like you say about getting these sort of, you get your first research thing set up, or you're, and it's all working perfectly, and you just stop for a second, zoom out, have a look at it all going, and go, right, I'm happy with this. And you get points like that, and you can just I'm just going to put the game down for a bit, and it's just perfect. I've kind of been doing with that with the refining in stages, where I've done bits of it and enjoyed it, and then kind of gone, okay, right, I've got a little bit of how this works, but I've not fully got what I need out of it. But I'll stop for the moment, come back, work out a little bit more about where all the pipes go and what I need to do to make these chemicals.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could keep on going on about this one for ages, really.
But let's wrap that up.
I think we've talked about it enough.
So that's Factorial. There's a game that both me and Euan are really enjoying.
Yeah.
I think
a lot of people are enjoying it out there. So
you've played it a hell of a lot more than I have. But, I mean, what I've played of it has been pretty bloody good. But right, so let's move on to finally we're talking about a new video game.
Yeah.
It's not a new video game. It's a couple of years old now, this game, but it's something that we haven't talked about before.
Right.
Now, I'm playing Endless Legend, which is a pretty well-known game, actually. Now, it's part of a series of games called the Endless series. Now, the first one, I think, the first one was Endless Space. Yes, it was. And then Endless Legend came along, and then one called Dungeon of the Endless. Now, Dungeon of the Endless is nothing like Endless Legend or Endless Space, so I'm not really going to talk about that here.
Okay.
Because Dungeon of the Endless is like a sort of tower defense game, weird thing. I have got it, and I have played it, but I don't think I really enjoyed it that much. I'm not that into tower defense games, so.
No.
But it was a sort of weird pixelated roguelike thing, sort of randomly generated thing. Anyway. Now, Endless Space was the first one that I played. Now, that came out in 2012, and I played that a bit. And it's a space 4X game. So your classic explore, expand, exploit, exterminate. Well, I've got them all first time.
Oh.
Now, Endless Legend.
Say the name of the game.
I know, I'm just getting mixed up with my Endlesses. Endlesses. Is also a 4X game, but it's the fantasy setting 4X game. Now, one of the things I knew that the games were related, but what I was not expecting was when I went into Endless Legend was that it was so similar to Endless Space. Considering Endless Space is a space sci-fi game,
yeah.
and
I've seen
Endless
this
Legend
game. When you were talking about the space stuff, I was like, "What's this? How does this?"
Now, basically, the things that they have in common is the UI is very similar. Okay,
right.
So the way that the game's structured in terms of its menus and its screens that it uses and stuff like that, they're virtually identical. Also, the resources that are in the game. So there are 4 basic resources in the game. You've got dust, which is basically your currency. You've got science. Dust. Yeah, it's called dust.
All right. Oh, it's called dust.
It's just called dust, aye. You've got science, you've got food, and then you've got resources for building productions and stuff like that. Endless Legend and Endless Space both use all 4 of those as their main resources.
Okay, so
they've also got like similar ways that you deal with your units and stuff like that in the game, and also like it's got a hero system and stuff like that as well. Technology tree. It's got all of these things, and they're pretty similar in both games. Now, Endless Legend feels much more like a Civilization game. So, like Sid Meier's Civilization games.
Yeah.
You basically start off, you pick a race at the start of the game. I think you can customise the races as well if you want to give different sort of bonuses and penalties and stuff like that. But I think there are 8 or 9 basic ones that you can pick from, and they're all pretty varied. They're not straight up fantasy tropes. There are some that are, like the ones that I went are the Wild Walkers, who are basically elf-like people, but a bit more maybe warlike sort of thing. Like they're a bit more, I would say, shamanistic actually.
Okay.
So they're like not like those sort of
they're like the shaman.
laddie-die elves. Aye, they're a bit more like they're like the shaman.
They're like the shaman. They're pure like Raven. They paint themselves up and they go.
That's it.
They go down the rave and they kick fuck out of folk.
They're echoed out their face all the time. Right.
Are there any like particularly interesting races and like just something that stands out as like a new creation or something? Because you know I'm interested in this topic in fantasy games.
There's one race which I don't know if this is like a nod to the Endless Space game, because it's been a while since I played Endless Space, but there is one race which is basically meant to be a race that's crash landed on the planet, and like a spacefaring race.
Right,
I don't know if it's one of the races that's in Endless Space. I can't remember what they were called, so I don't know if it's the same one, but that's quite cool because these guys have actually got guns and stuff.
All right.
Right. So, but the fact is, they've crash landed on this planet with nothing to do, so they're like nothing to bit their technology back up, basically. So they've just got to basically go with what's there. There's a couple other. There's a necrophage race or something like that, which are basically like undead and all that sort of thing. Yeah. So there are some of the tropes there, but I think they've taken them in a slightly different direction, giving them a bit more flavour, that kind of thing. There are also a lot of minor factions in the game, which you can actually, in the game, you can pacify them, or you can just like attack them. Okay. So you, I don't know what actually is that. I think you can attack them to pacify them, and then you get like as you're going through, and these minor factions are you can do quests for them. You can conquer them. I think they call it pacifying in the game.
Right. Yes.
You can do quests for them as well, and then they basically become your mates, and then they let you do certain things, like you can use some of their units and stuff like that. So you can make units that they could only make, which is quite a nice wee twist on the whole thing, because you've got units that are definitely only be made by certain races.
Right.
So if you take over some of these minor factions, like the game that I'm playing, I'm not that far into this game.
Okay.
But the game that I'm playing, I've pacified a race of these sort of birdmen. So I've got these like flying birdmen units which like can fly, can go really fast, and they can attack everything around them and that kind of thing. But there are other things like I've seen some like dwarf-like minor race. There's a centaur minor race. There's ogres and all these different sort of like kind of classic fantasy things. Okay. But I've also seen a sort of centaur-like race, but instead of horses, it's spiders. So they're half human, half spider. And they've all got their own personal units.
Yeah.
And if you manage to pacify them, you can build those units.
That's good.
Now, like I say, it feels like a Sid Meier's Civilization game, because you're building towns, you're building cities, you're sort of putting improvements in the cities, like buildings and stuff like that, to increase production or happiness or food or whatever. A lot of micromanagement.
I think that's what I saw you doing, because I think I commented at the time, it looked quite board gamey.
Yes, it
does.
But
I can see like from what I saw of it, what the civilization aspect of it, like I think the way you were sort of pointing out how the resources worked, it was kind of the area around your city and stuff.
Yes.
There's a lot of hexes.
Aye. So your cities, you can build them up. You take the resources from the hexes around.
Yeah.
You can actually expand out as well, and you can choose where to expand out to.
Right.
So you can build what they call borough streets, which extends your city out a wee bit further, that lets you take resources from elsewhere and that kind of thing. But like I say, there's a lot of micromanagement in this game. So if you don't like a game with a lot of micromanagement, now I'm talking about you're constantly like looking at where you're assigning your workers in your city to boost certain things, because you get, depending on your population, you get a certain number of workers. You can put them into science production or dust production or resource production, that kind of thing. So you're constantly fiddling about with that to change.
I think if it's something that's like quite central to the game and it's done well, it can be alright, that sort of thing.
It is, but it gets, there's...
Because I know I hate it in some games, but in other games I'm well into that side of it.
I think this game does it quite well.
I'm always consistent with what I'm like with that sort of thing.
There's a really handy screen that lets you just see all your cities and what they're all doing,
right?
In one sort of screen, so that you can see if something's not right with one of your cities, if it's not producing anything or if it's not building anything or that, then you can easily just click on it in that screen, because you can see what everything's doing. So it's all right in that way, but you do, like, I get the feeling it was the same with Endless Space, because like I say, in Endless Legend, I've not played it that much. I've only got 2 cities at the moment,
right?
But in Endless Space, you ended up with, like, literally, you could end up with 100 planets under your control after a few hundred turns into the game, sort of thing, and you are micromanaging all of them. Like, you can set governors on them to get them to do basic things, but if you really want to specialise in something, if you really want to get something done in particular, you're going to have to micromanage all of these things. And that could be a complete pain in the arse. Alright, so we'll see how it goes with Endless Legend, because if it gets to that point of being so fiddly that I just can't be bothered with it anymore, I'll probably stop playing it. But at the moment, I'm actually quite enjoying it.
Right.
it's a refreshing sort of. I quite like to go back to these kind of games every so often and start playing something like this, because
good for that.
When I've been doing a lot of, playing stuff like The Division constantly, or playing, 7 Days to Die, or these survival games, sometimes it's quite good to just sit down with a strategy game that I can get lost in.
Right.
Now, the game's really nice.
Yeah.
Nice, pretty graphics and stuff like that. The units all look good.
That's what, because I didn't really see that aspect of the game. Like, how do the battles take place? Is it like a turn-based thing, or how's that all? The
battles are pretty cool, actually. I was going to get to that. Now, before we go into actually how the battles work, I'll say that the military units, like I've seen, you get these basic military units, and you can research new military units, and they're all dependent on the race that you pick. So, like, I start off as the Wild Walkers. Started off with like ranged.
Bowman,
sort of elven archer type style of thing, but you can actually edit these military units, so you can make several different versions of this basic unit. So you can get, this one's got this type of armour on, or this one's got no armour on because I want it to be fast and easy to build, easy to produce sort of thing. And you can get them different weapons and shields and different bits of jewellery and stuff like that.
So there's a lot of micromanagement in this game.
There's a lot of micromanagement in this game. If you really want to specialise your military units, then this is a good game for that. And you research the technology tree. I'm going a wee bit off topic here. The technology tree is much more basic than it was in Endless Space. In Endless Space, the technology tree was this massive, sprawling mess with a lot of stuff in it, by the way. Alright, which was cool. But sometimes you could get really you could spend 10 minutes just sitting staring at that thing and not making head nor tail of what you actually want to research at this point. Now, it's a bit more simplified in Endless Legend in that there's like 5 tiers of technology. You have to research 9 things out of the 15 or something that are on each tier before you can move on to the next one. But simplified, works.
Bit like the Civilization board game.
Very similar to that, actually. But yeah, going back to the military side of things. So when you get into a fight, what I think is quite cool about this, I'll tell you what happens in Endless Space first. Is that when you get into a fight in Endless Space, you go into this new screen, you give orders to your ships, you can tell your ship to do different things, and then you just let the game go, and it simulates the whole thing for you. Alright. In Endless Legend, if you get into a fight, what it actually does is, on this world map, you've seen that world map, it actually changes the world map. So if you attack somebody in a certain square, alright, the two units that are attacking, or the two armies that are attacking each other, then spread out across the world map sort of thing, on that small section of the world map there, and it uses the terrain that's actually on the world map there as the terrain for your fight. So it doesn't actually change the screen, you just spread out across a little small section of the map there and fight each other across that, which is pretty cool. So it's like you're actually having a battle across this region of the world sort of thing, which is quite cool. And then, yes, there's a turn-based thing that goes on. It's slightly similar to Endless Space in that you pretty much just give your guys orders and then let them go, but there's much less... because in Endless Space it was like the whole battle happened and that was it. Alright, now in this it's like there's 6 turns or something like that. You can change the orders every turn, change who they're attacking, where they're moving to, tell them to hold their position and not attack anybody, that kind of thing. And then you just let them go, and it's got an initiative thing, units with higher initiative will attack first and all that kind of thing. But it's pretty cool. I quite like the combat system in it. It's much better. I'm liking it much better than Endless Space. Endless Space looked good for the battles with all these big spaceships all blasting the shit out of each other like that.
Sounds
was pretty fucking
good,
cool. But
it's cool when you don't have to do anything as well.
Yeah, an Endless Legend that doesn't look as good, but it's much more streamlined and much more. You get much more control over it as well. So yeah, I mean, it's Endless Legend. Like I say, I'm not that far through it. I'm just going to play it until I get bored of it, which could be any time.
Come back to it.
But at the moment, I'm actually really enjoying it.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker. It's got that one more turn syndrome.
Yeah, like I mean, I've not played a huge amount of strategy games, but like the ones I do tend to like, because I mean, Civilization 2 is probably still one of my favourite games. I will still go back and play that now because and it is that kind of thing where you just turn based. I mean, I'm trying to picture how the simulated battles, because I've not played a lot of games where they have that kind of thing where you just set it up and let it go. The only thing I can think of I've ever played like that is was it like Shogun Total War?
Oh yeah.
Had that sort of system where you didn't really have a lot of input on. Like,
no, in Total War you had a lot of control.
Or am I thinking
you had
of
a
something
lot of
else?
control in Total War.
Or just didn't really feel like you. I don't know.
Well, I haven't said that. I don't think have I ever played the Shogun once.
I don't know.
It might be different in Shogun, but I'm not sure. Definitely in Rome Total War and Medieval Total War, you had a lot more control in what you were doing. In fact, you had a hell of a lot of control.
Aye.
So, I don't know, maybe you're thinking of something else, but
It could be Shogun. Well,
that's going to annoy you now, I think.
That is going to annoy me now, and it's going to annoy our listeners.
Yeah, somebody will be screaming what we're talking about right now. Probably Pawel.
Hopefully it is.
Yeah.
And then you can come on the show and tell us about it. Come back, Pawel.
But yeah, Endless Legend, I am, like I say, enjoying it. And I'll maybe keep you updated next episode. Let you know if I'm still playing it or not.
I'm tempted to give that one a go, actually.
I don't know if your computer will
I
handle
don't know if that'll do it.
Maybe if you turned all the settings down, it might take it.
Just
in fact, I'm sure
render everything is just.
I'm sure I played Endless Space on that computer.
MS Paint blobs. Yeah.
Right. Well, I think that's going to wrap the show up because we actually said before the start we'll probably got to keep it short, but we're now nearly an hour and a half into it. So
Pawel's spirit remains.
So
I hope that is our new precedent. Hour and a half long.
Hour and a half. I think that's a pretty good.
I think that's good value for the commissioner as well.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's what they're looking for.
That's it.
An hour and a half long. We only want hour and a half long podcasts.
Well, that brings us to the actual links and stuff. So yeah, if you want to find us on podnose.com,
www.co.uk.
No, it's podnose.com. It's podnose.com.
Yeah.
We are on there somewhere, along with a whole bunch of
all sorts of other podcasts.
Podcasts ranging from satire to people talking about movies that nobody's heard of.
Yeah, it's just like various. All your classic podcast topics, really.
Yeah.
Music, film,
taking the piss.
Yeah. Sitting about and chatting as
that's what podcasts are.
Yeah. Getting right down to it, really.
Aye.
So check those out if you're on there.
Yeah, podnose.com. What am I doing now?
I don't know. You usually reel off.
I'm going to reel
all
off
of
all
our
the
social
things.
media links.
So first off, our email address. So if you want to send us questions or comments or anything like that, you can email us at firstplayertoken@gmail.com. If you can find us on Facebook, not if you can find us on Facebook, but you can find us on Facebook.
You can find us if Facebook.
So find the Large and Unnecessary First Player Token podcast on Facebook. You can also leave questions and stuff. You can get in touch with us in there if you like as well.
Very easily contacted on Facebook.
We do keep up to date with Facebook. We're on Twitter as well, and that's at First Player Token. Now that's 1ST Player Token.
Once Player Token.
Yep. We're on SoundCloud, we're on iTunes. We have a YouTube account, and we have a couple of videos up there. One of us playing Star Wars X-Wing, and the other one is... What is the other one?
Did you put another one up?
Oh no, it was me completing something during a stream.
Oh, right, okay.
It was me completing Westerado, actually. So it's the final few moments of Westerado.
Yeah.
I've put that up because I managed to get the video for that off my stream. So that's up there. And yes, my Twitch account is Unnecessary Chris if you want to find me on Twitch. And I do try and stream a couple of times a week.
He's pretty regular, folks.
I've not been regular the past few weeks because I've just been way too busy with other stuff. But I think things are going to become pretty normal again the next few weeks. So I will try and get some streaming on the go. I'm actually not working this week, so I might get some extra streaming in. I've no excuse now.
24-hour pants and biscuits streaming.
That's it.
Quality.
And crying. Lots of crying. But I think that's all our social media stuff, so if you want to get in touch with us on any of those things, please do. You got anything else to say, Euan? We're going to go and play Roll for the Galaxy now.
Are we?
I think we are.
Well, this is going to be interesting.
It's my birthday this week, and I've got an early present, and it's Roll for the Galaxy, and I'm well excited about it.
He is very excited about it. He's been showing me dice all morning.
Euan, look at these dice. It has got a lot of dice.
Pastel coloured dice.
Right, well, thanks for listening.
Cheers.
We'll try and get Pawel back to do his RPG segment.
I'm hoping that episode 18 will be...
Episode 18 will be his episode.
Much long for. We'll probably have like tons of stuff to talk about by that point.
Aye, we will. I mean, I'm expecting to play more video games by that point, so...
Yep. Hopefully we'll have the next episode of Time Stories.
Oh, yes.
So
we are halfway through the next part of Time Stories, and
we'll
it's been quite good.
We'll get Pawel there, because he's obviously playing it with us as well, so we can...
and lamenting over some of the choices we're making.
But we're lamenting over some of his, I think.
I think so. But me and you have died during this, so that's during this.
It wasn't for long.
Playthrough of Time Stories. Anyway, well, that's just teasing that, so... we'll be back in episode 18. Hopefully Pawel will be here.
Yes.
Thanks for listening.
Cheers.
See you later.
Bye.